from what you were saying, you're flying through these stars. Did it seem like space?
Yeah, it seemed like space. It was like a black purple background, and they were lined up, you know, going on forever. And there are these big balls of color and emotion and almost a musical flow. And it was a welcoming. I was parading through them and they were just showering me with this love. And I was super stoked. And, I was, like I said, how did I, how was I tricked so completely that I was this dude in this, you know, skin suit uh, down there in that place, with all those heavy emotions.
Hey, everybody, welcome again to another episode of Soul Inspired. Today, I have Mr. Bill Letson. He is a retired fire captain and has a remarkable near-death experience that I've wanted to talk with him since I started this podcast. And here he is. So, first of all, honestly, thanks for coming on here. And I've been so excited to have you on here. And I'll tell you why. So one of the questions I was going to ask you is, when did you first start? When did you first put your story out to the world? When was that?
When I first, in my NDE was in '94, and when I first came back, I lit it up. I told everybody because it was super cool news, but it wasn't, it didn't. It's not like now. I sounded like a wacko. I probably still do, but yeah, I told everybody, and I was a fireman, and I was, on the promotional list, and uh, I kind of got the word, around the back door to, tone it down. You sound like a weirdo, and I got it. Fire department. That's like a um, role model, for social role model, and you got to get yourself squared away. So
Right.
yeah, I buttoned it up for about 15 years, and if somebody and everybody knew, even the young guys knew about this, story that I went through. And if somebody was going through something and they wanted to talk, I poured it out. But I didn't, I didn't offer it. How's that? I didn't
Right.
offer it, and I didn't get in discussions with the religious guys, in the station and stuff. And in 2010, I retired, and then I had a couple of years there of bliss as a retiree, just playing in bands and riding bikes and swimming, um, and then I read this book, DMT, the Spirit Molecule, and in that book by Dr. Rick Strassman, he did a study at the University of New Mexico, and he gave his 70 volunteers DMT, which created a near-death experience, and his volunteers were seeing the same thing I saw. And just that freaked me out. I was like, I mean, I had to drop that book and walk around for a week and sort it out and say, okay, this is, significant. And then I was drawn to travel and speak to shamans and, ancient knowledge of what did the Egyptians know about the afterlife, which is quite a bit. And all those ancient advanced civilizations, they knew things that we don't know.
Right.
And um, so yeah, it all started coming together. And then somebody asked me around 2017 to tell my story at a IONS meeting. And, I was
Okay.
really kind of worried about that. I thought, yeah, this is crazy. I'm going to talk to 200 people and tell this crazy story. But it went really well. Those kind of people are looking for those, stories.
Yep.
And then I was just on the road, as going to all these different IONS meetings and giving a presentation. And they'd sit there with their mouths open after, I'd go up to the Bay Area or back east or something. And and they knew I was, I was genuine. I was authentic. I was sincere.
Right.
And they also knew that I couldn't be too weird because I, retired as a captain in the fire department. And so it was cool. And then,
Cool.
the whole COVID thing happened, and then the podcast thing started. We all started learning it a few years ago, and then the last year, something has happened. The last year, the secrets are no longer going to be hidden.
Hmm.
Um, they're coming out, and things are rocking and rolling. In the last year and a half, it's gone, you know, viral. The
Hmm.
whole the whole thing, the whole NDE and what's life about. This is
Right. Oh, absolutely. I think as technology is just emerging more and more, it's getting around more. Um, Thank you for sharing that, because the reason I had originally asked you about when you first put the story out there, and I think you said 2017 was through Ions. We don't know each other, which is what's even cooler about this. And but I'll tell you, when I was around 17 years old, I was going through some real anxieties in my life, some real just down times, like near the end of high school, confused about what am I doing here? Like, and a lot of anxiety, dealing with a lot of different ailments because of the anxiety. And it would lead me to a fear of death. And it just kept going on this. I just kept getting more scared and scared of dying. And to a point where I couldn't really function. Um, and I had to turn to what I would call my uh, a spiritual journey at that point, because I thought, what else do I do? It's nothing else is fixing what's going on. So started talking to psychics and different things like that, trying to understand what all this meant, what was going on. And so it was very early on, that I got into NDEs, because I was only around 18 or 19, and I started getting books on it. I thought, well, there's got to be some people who've died and come back. Has anything happened? And of course, and then my mind just, I was like, whoa, this does happen. And I will say, for me, and this is why this is so important, these podcast episodes, for me at that time, it is what gave me hope, to come out of that despair I was in, and to say, I got to live, because I think I've got some kind of purpose here. And then that led me to my music career and the great things I've done, and hopefully more great things on the way, and the impacts I've had on the world with coaching and all these different things. The reason you came to mind right away when I started this, I'm only 9 episodes in, so that's why I feel very grateful that you've jumped on. But the reason I reached out to you was because, when, for whatever reason, you were one of the first people that in the online world that I saw a video about. Not one of the first, but one of the first ones that really, for some reason, I'd heard all kinds of NDEs before, but your story, for some reason, grabbed a hold of me a little stronger. Okay. And then the funny part is, I, I know you have videos all over the place at this point. and you know, I've talked to quite a few people now, and I've got a lot of people lined up to do podcast episodes with. And I decided to not binge watch your stuff. I decided I want to talk to you from soul to soul today. I'm like, I have my questions, I have my things I want to ask you. But so I'm really grateful you came on. But your story did speak to me. Okay. Wanted to ask you though, and I'm sure you've answered some of these questions before, but before you had the experience, you said, what year did you say it was? In 94, I think you said was
94, yeah.
94. Before 94, leading up to that experience, what was your day-to-day life like at that time? Who was Bill Letson at that time?
I was a fireman. I was completely devoted to that career, that job. My wife would say, we go out to dinner or something, and she'd say, "Are you ever off duty?" Because I'd be looking for the exits, and is that guy choking over there? And I'd be like, no, I'm not. This is like a service to humanity, and I take it serious. And so yeah, I was a fireman, and like on my days off, I would go to classes or go to training, and that was normal. I had surfing, and I worked out a lot. I was one of those wackos. I had way too much energy. Um, Ironmans, all that went on for 20 years,
Wow.
and just it was trying to find a balance, because there is this. And I hear that in what you're telling me about yourself is trying to find a balance, because there is this cosmic inflow, this energy um, that was waiting for what's going on now. And I was dealing with it the best way I could with exercise and running in the hills, on trails, with my dogs and stuff. That would calm me down. Um, so yeah, I was into my job, and I was, everything I said. That was me.
Okay. So you were living the day-to-day life in your career, looking good, working out, feeling good, just kind of moving through life, 9 to 5, probably not 9 to 5 for you if you're a fireman, but you were working a lot and just kind of riding your career at this point. Okay. So if you don't mind, sharing, I'm sure you've shared it before, but how did the NDE happen? How did it happen?
Well, there was a flu epidemic, and we were running calls, and it was it was a strong flu season. That's the way we would call it back then. Uh, and so there was the emergency rooms were full, and a lot of people were being hospitalized, and first responders were showing up there. Um, when they go down, when they're been overwhelmed by the sickness. And so we'd be in their homes, and we'd get them in an ambulance and get them to the hospital. And so we went on a call, and there was a woman who was, her neighbors hadn't seen her come out of her apartment in a couple of days. And the newspapers were stacking up. And so that was an indicator that, and her car was there. So it's like we broke in, found her in a back room, and it was serious. And so we started rolling furniture out of the way, and I slid across the bed and got O2 mask on her, and she kind of came out of it, because she was circling the drain. Her vitals were almost gone, and she kind of came out of it and let out this gasp, like, thank God you guys are here. And her breath went right in my lungs. I
Mm,
just took it full in. And we've all done this with a kid or a dog, and so anyway, I said, well, whatever is going on with her, I just absorbed it full scale.
right.
And we went on days off, and a couple days later, I slowly, actually, I went down pretty fast, and I was dehydrated in a couple of days, super dehydrated, like I've never been. And I had all this, vital signs were just crashing, and ended up in an ambulance and got to the hospital. And they put a few bags in me, and it was helping with the dehydration thing. And then they pushed some meds, that because the emergency room was overwhelmed, so they were just giving everybody the same thing to keep them calm until they could treat them. And yeah, I came in there with a blood pressure somewhere in the 70s, with a systolic in the 70s. And then I got this shot in my IV, and it just tanked my blood pressure. And I went out. I keeled over. And
Wow.
my wife said the highest blood pressure she heard them get from you was 40 over zero. And you're not going to be around much longer. And yeah, it was one of those things. It was one of those hospital things that happened every day. And um, a lot of these NDErs, something happened in the hospital. They're going into surgery or something, and they react to the anesthesia. These are some of the famous um, people like John Davis and a couple of others. So yeah, that's what happened. No hard feelings at all. I came out of it the next day. I was out for like 12, 13 hours. But during that night, I left my body and um, had this whole, NDE story.
Okay. So you did get the flu. Whatever this flu was, you ended up
Yeah.
contracting it. Okay. And it just you didn't have it hit your lungs, couldn't breathe. Is that kind of where it went to the most? Because, with what happened with COVID, it was the lungs. Did it hit the same thing, or was it just more fevers and other things with you?
Yeah, it came in through the lungs with that breath, and then it was this full body thing. I mean, my heart was racing. Because 150 was, the night before, I was telling my wife, I said, I've never had a pulse like this. It's just pounding, and then I was throwing up and going to the bathroom, and
Right.
I was getting dehydrated, and um, so yeah, it was a full on insult.
Right.
To the body.
So your body is just at a point where it doesn't want to be here anymore. And you're going through the night and you're jumping. Did you jump out of your body back in? People talk about kind of coming in and out and in and out before they have that big moment. Or what happened during the night?
Yeah, I went out in the emergency room. I keeled over, and then the next thing I knew, I was flying through a sea of stars, just these colored orbs, these balls, and zooming along. And I wasn't Bill anymore, and I had full awareness that I wasn't Bill. And I kept thinking, uh, how in the world did I forget who I really was? How was I tricked so completely, so perfectly that I believed I was this human being, this dude who had this he had this whole list of things, his likes and his dislikes and his history and where he was going in life and this whole definition of who he was and what was right and what was wrong and all of that stuff was gone. It was like it was just a bucket that had been emptied out and it never meant anything. Um, and it was just complete exhilaration. It was complete euphoria. And, I've used the word cosmic orgasm and, it's not like what I'm, I'm, I'm trying to say that it's not what we know here with that.
Right.
It, but no other word really comes close to just you're completely overwhelmed with bliss, with ecstasy, every moment. And what's her name? Louisa Peck. When she left her body, she flew out into this blue sky, and she said it was complete euphoria. And every new moment was, oh wow, this is so cool. Oh wow, this is so cool. It's everything, that we don't really understand that here, but every new moment was a complete unlimited possibilities and everything was cool and you were stoked beyond belief.
Wow.
Um, and we've got that really choked down here. We're down to just some limited senses and we're not connected to that flow. And it's all on purpose. We signed up for it.
I would say that's this is why I didn't want to watch your videos, because I wanted to hear it from you. I wanted to hear what you were saying. I wanted it to be authentic and have a few comments on it. As a musician, okay, as a musician, my name is Joe Borowski, but I had a stage name for a while named Soul Vision, and the reason was because I wrote a song called Soul Vision, and it's a very it comes from somewhere I can't understand. And as a small child, I was writing music and singing and writing at 11 years old. And I would come out of this writing session and go, where did that come from? Because I'd start playing some chords and then just everything would come out. And then, of course, my mom would hear it or something and I'd think, whoa, like, why is Joe so deep at 11 years old? But I don't know where it was coming from. And one thing that I've loved being as a musician myself is I never really sold myself out and stayed true to that nature of writing through my whole life. And I still do it to this day, where when I need emotion to come out, it just turns on and I go, where, how did I do that? And that's the closest thing I can say that I have in feeling something that's outside of this guy. Um, it's the only thing that makes sense to me. I've done meditation. I hope to continue to get better at it. I've had people guide me through meditation, and I've had a few rare experiences from that. But for the most part, I've always said music is my meditation. So when I'm writing and singing, I can somehow go somewhere, but I bet you it's like 0.0001% of what it actually is like. So when you explain it the way you've just explained it, I kind of feel I understand what you mean, but it's like a longing or a searching that I continue to have. And that's what got me so obsessed with NDEs, growing up. And I thought everyone's going to think I'm crazy because I'm so obsessed. It's not that I'm obsessed with death. I'm obsessed with what are we doing here? I've had a few episodes. I had an episode, a couple episodes back where I asked a question at the end of my podcast, my episodes. And I was trying to explain it to what I was trying to ask, but I was like, no, like what is this? Like, what are we doing? Like, what is the purpose? And I started almost like that sense of like, I'm losing reality here. Like, because we're so stuck in our day to day, like glue, that once you start questioning things, it can get a little bit out of control. Because I go, okay, yeah, I'll go and I'll get my bread and my groceries and I'll come, but what am I doing? Like, why? What is it leading me to? So those questions always came up. So getting
So,
back to,
Joe,
yeah, sorry, go
I'm
ahead.
okay. I'm going to tell you something that you'll probably help you, come full circle with your quest.
Okay.
And so the universe, as what I experience and what is still experiencing, is that it is an infinite, expanding, uh, creative, striving, sensual life force energy. And this thing with music, the universe is music. It's music and color and light and flow. And the fact that you got all those guitars behind you and the keyboard, and that music is a big part of you ever since you showed up here, and that you've got this creative side to you, and you've got this questioning, and you've got this history of a spiritual crisis. You are an old soul, and you're here for what's happening right now. And it's just starting. And it's going to ramp up. I don't know what the timetable is, but it is starting. It is opening. Your time is now, my friend. And when I had my NDE, I was never musical at all. But when I had my NDE, um, I was asked this on some podcast years ago, and I didn't. He asked me, "What did you bring back from your NDE?" Some people bring something back, and I said something about intuition or something. And but my wife scolded me later, and because it was within slowly, but within the next year or two, I was counting all the time. I was one and two and three and four and one, and then it was stacking these groups of four together. And you start talking about bars and measures, and music is mathematical, and we can tell when the math adds up. That's a good tune. It's moving, it grabs us, it hits us in our emotions. um So yeah, I had this whole thing where I bought drums and I was playing them within a couple of months. And my wife said, if because I didn't have any lessons, but she said, if I didn't watch you and listen to you, I'd never would have believed. Within a couple of months, I could play any country western song. And,
Wow.
some of the more intricate rock songs, you have to learn them where they're going to go. And, I was in a band after that and more bands. And then I ended up in this really good group and playing all these big gigs with 1,000 people in the audience. And, it's all happened really fast within, half a dozen years. And my friends were like, where did this come from? And I'm like, I have no idea. It just became, you know, music became easy. It is part of us.
Right.
We are part of that musical flow. It is dominant in the universe. Um, and if a guy came into when you jam, a guy came in and says, I wrote this song last night. I'll try to get it down so you guys can study it. And I'd go, just go for it, man. And and long as he had this eye connection, the eyes are the windows to the soul. I knew when he was gonna, when there was a full stop or when there was a bridge, I just knew it. And we'd finish and he'd go, dude, how did you do that? And I'm like, I don't know. It was just there.
Right.
So
So you completely understand it. I think that's remarkable. So you weren't a musician at all before the NDE.
zero.
Wow, that is fascinating. And it's like as a coach myself, I coach people how to write too, right? And I get two different types of people, but I have found over the years that my type is more rare, and it's that I feel and freestyle. So I feel the music, and then the music just comes out. Then there's the type that sit and write lines. They're all, we need to get a rhyme scheme here and a rhyme scheme here, and let's include alcohol, trucks, and like they put all the different things. Mine was always just right. Um, but that was from childhood, so it must have been something that I just decided as I come to this earth, I'm bringing that with me.
Yeah.
Because and I think everyone's got their own gifts, I guess you call them,
Yeah.
or what they are. And it seems like when you jumped out of Bill and then jump back in, you took something home. It's like, I'm taking this with me, right? Or not home, but you took something back to the hotel. Um, and then yeah, is that what it feels like? Like you left, came back, and you had this extra like skill set.
Yeah, it was, over the next year or two, the counting thing started. And I'm like, what is with this counting? I'm swimming laps and I'm counting, and it's two, a three, a four, a two, one, a two, a three, a four, and flip turn, and then I was constantly counting. And I go, man, I'm losing it. I'm turning into an autistic adult or something.
Right.
But
Well,
yeah,
what's really interesting about that is when I was a child too, I would be, wherever I'd be sitting on a hill and I'd be doing this.
right.
And, I'm sure everyone around me, my family probably thought, oh, what's going on, but I was just counting beats. I was hearing music, and and I did that everywhere, and then as I got older, of course, you realize, oh, that's not the normal thing to do. I mean, people are thinking that's a little bit strange. So then you push that away, but I'm like, well, then I'll grab a guitar and I'll do it in a different way. So wow, just you saying that I can relate to that as a child, that beat, now that you say it like that, that's exactly what was going on with me at a young age. So that is fascinating. I didn't even expect to talk about that. So thanks for mentioning that. Um,
Yeah, when
so
you came on, I saw all your guitars. You heard my comment, and it's like, okay, I get this guy. He probably doesn't even know that he's really connected to the divine, and it's the music. Um, Music's a connection to everything.
I will tell you, I do and I don't know that I'm connected so much to the divine because um, this longing, As a child, I don't feel like I want this episode to be about me, but I'm going to do it because I feel like I feel like I need to talk to you about this. As a child, I remember being in a classroom and looking around at the other kids if they were making fun of each other or whatever, and feeling really sad and feeling like, why are you doing that? And I'm like grade 2 or 3. I was just a little guy, very sensitive kid, very like much just confused why everyone was being bad to each other if they were being bad. Um, and then as I got older, feeling this constant um, homesick feeling, but not understanding that because love my mom, had some issues growing up, a lot of issues, like different family issues and things happen. But always feeling like I don't even feel like it's something else. It's driving me like I'm searching for something. And then I get older, and then here I am now, and you go, I'm constantly searching for something, and that's why I think watching people who've had NDEs, it fascinates me only because you've kind of touched something different than not everyone gets that opportunity. Not that I'm asking for it. Um, I feel like I sometimes say to myself, okay, maybe I can learn these things through people who've experienced them, so I can understand it better, right? But that's just sharing with you that I've always had that feeling, and I've read NDEs and talked to different people, and they've said things like that. Well, once they come back, um, takes a little while for them to readjust, or they go, "Why did I come back?" or "Why wasn't I allowed to stay?" Things like that. So, from what you were saying, you're flying through these stars. Does it seem like space?
Yeah, it seemed like space. It was like a black purple background, and they were lined up, you know, going on forever. And there are these big balls of color and emotion and almost a musical flow. And it was a welcoming. I was parading through them, and they were just showering me with this love. And I was super stoked. And, I was, like I said, how did I, how was I tricked so completely that I was this dude in this, you know, skin suit uh, down there in that place, with all those heavy emotions.
Right.
That's what the universe is. It's emotions, and that's what music, brings us. It's like a translation to that emotional side of what we really are.
Did you have emotions over there?
I had nothing but high emotions, higher emotions, the euphoria, ecstasy, um, love, and that's all I felt. And the things
So
that we had,
positive emotions. It seems like.
yeah, yeah. And the other stuff, the lower vibrational stuff, the whole thing, we have our choice between love and fear. And the lower, there's this diagram, this cone, and the lower part is fear. And it's all these things like depression and anxiety and guilt and shame and hate and all of those things. That whole bottom part of that just dropped away. And that those things stay here. They don't travel with us. They aren't part of our eternal um, realm that we come from.
Why do you believe that we have them here?
Oh, to learn, to experience them. We go through these thousands of lives, and it's rough here. Even just having a normal life, like you said, groceries and going to school and doing your chores. We're saddled with um, these lower emotions that don't exist where we come from. Um,
Wow.
yeah, they
Okay.
don't. That's why nobody wants to come back. And what my favorite, I got to talk to her a couple of years ago, but my favorite NDE lady who saved my bacon was Dr. Mary Neal. And, she had 3 or 4 kids and a husband she loved, and she's a successful surgeon. And she drowned in a kayaking accident in Chile. And she peeled away from her body, just like peeling a stamp off. And she existed elsewhere, and her body fell away in this boat. And she was instantly home. And she had no intention of returning instantly. And
Wow.
that's what I felt. And um, yeah, she's as genuine as you can get. Uh,
That's fascinating. So, yeah, and I hear that a lot, that even if you have these people you love, the the career that you've worked your whole life towards, you have all these things, you go, "Oh, no, I'm good." It's just I'm good now. It's they'll be fine. And
be fine.
yeah, yeah. So, did your experience end on that? Did it keep going? Did something else happen after that, or was it just you went into this place and then you came back? Like, how did it go from
Oh,
there?
you really don't know my story.
I'm telling you, I do recall it, and
Oh, okay.
it inspired me, and that's why as soon as I started watching a video of you talking, I'm like, no, I want to hear you tell me because I really
Okay.
want it to be authentic. So that's where I'm at with your story, but I've heard it. But I know you're going to say it and I'm going to recall it all. But I
Okay.
just so you could share it again with me for the first time.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I was flying along in this blissful state where there was a limitlessness to the universe. You could be or do anything you wanted. Every new moment was completely euphoric. And I was like, this is so cool. And I had felt like had been released from a hot, dark, stuffy closet, and that I was this huge expanded cloud, this huge expanded balloon of awareness. It seems like I went on forever. And I was flying along saying, man, how in the heck did I get into that situation back there? I am never going back to that. That that was
Right.
terrible. And I had this wonderful life. I mean, perfect parents, everything was perfect. Wife, career, education. Um, but like I said, we we carry around this load of emotions that it's crushing. It really is. And when you're free of it, it's like I ain't going back to that. And that's what these NDEs are talking about, that freedom from that bottom half, those low vibrations. So I'm flying along and I'm completely stoked, saying, "Oh man, it's awesome." And and then I landed somewhere. I landed in a place that was solid. It had indirect lighting. There was equipment there, and there was tables, and there were uh, chairs and beds and things. And right in front of me, there were these 3 little hooded guys. They were about 4 foot tall, and they had these uh, dark little hoods, robes, and they were overjoyed to see me. They were giggling and they were bouncing around and they were asking me all kinds of questions. And if you ever watch the movie Communion,
Mm-hmm.
um, there's a scene in there. The soundtrack can entrain us with fear. They'll use those notes. I just went to a lecture a few days ago with Robert Edward Grant, and he talked about a diminished fifth. And he said, when you listen to, dun, 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 and he said, those notes are in the soundtracks for movies and they grab um, your energy and they
Mm-hmm.
entrain you in this fear. And then you're watching a horror movie
Right.
and, and um, it's a powerful mechanism. And so anyway, back to the communion, if you turn off the soundtrack, because everyone says, "Oh, they're aliens or they're demons or something," and I tell them, turn the soundtrack off and watch those little hooded guys. They're bouncing around, they're high fiving him, There's children in this facility. They're looking after them. They're dancing. They're joyful, happy little guys. And that's what I saw. That's what I experienced. And they were saying things. They're all talking at once. They're saying things like, "How was it? What did you learn? What can you tell us?" And they were all giggling. And I was just in a state of amazement. It's just like going, "What happened? Where am I now?" And one of them kind of stepped forward. They're kind of clumsy, goofy guys, and looked me up and down. And he turned to the other two and he goes, "He doesn't remember us." And they all started giggling, laughing uproariously. And I was like, "Guys," and I wasn't fearful at all. And it didn't exist. And I was like, "Guys, I'm a little confused right now. This is quite a change for what I'm used to. And I kind of remember you. Give me a little time to sort this out."
Right.
And they were laughing some more. And then there was this other guy, and he had been in the background, and he came forward, and he was this. I've called him all kinds of things, but he was this tall, wispy guy. He had this like wisp coming off him, and he was like this spinning energy, and he was very thin, had big smile on his face, and big open eyes. His eyebrows are up. He was um, exuberant to see me drop in. And when he came forward, it was like I was looking at somebody underwater. He was spinning, and then parts of him would separate, and then it would catch up. And
Wow.
as he came towards me, this spinning sort of engulfed me, and my um, my chest felt like it was over pumped tire, and my throat clamped down like I was watching a really heartfelt movie where a dog finds its way home or something. And I felt like I was going to break down in uncontrollable crying from love. There was so much love involved with this tall, wispy energy guy that it was paralyzing. It was absolutely overwhelming. And as he came forward the whole time, he was just chuckling. So we got the little guys giggling, and he's chuckling. And we had some back and forth stuff. Every time I said anything, he chuckled, and I could feel his laughter inside of me, inside my heart. And yeah, he just adored me. And so it wasn't very organized. They didn't seem like there was anything going on. They didn't have a plan or anything. The guys were just giggling and bouncing around, and he was looking at them and chuckling and looking at me and chuckling. And so I said, "Well, you guys, are we going to, do a review of my life? You know, because I'd like to get out of this facility and get back to that euphoric expanse, that ecstatic existence that was the universe. And are we going to review my life? You guys want to get started with that?" And the tall, wispy guy just cracked up. He just thought that was hilarious. And he said, "Sure, we can do that. How do you want to start?" And so I said, "Right on. Okay, this is working." And I started talking about just some stuff in my life. It wasn't a real review of your life where people talk about going through this profound experience of feeling what their words, harmed, how they harmed others and things. It wasn't any of that. It was just me talking about, that I wish I'd done something for my wife when we were younger. I got this offer for this job out on a island. We were going to be the rangers there coming out of college, and it was going to be only us. And she wanted that. She's like, "When are we going to ever have a chance to live on an island by ourselves?" And I was into the fire thing, working seasonally and stuff, and I took a fire job because I like being around the guys and the excitement and stuff. But she wanted that, and now as I'm, almost 70, I, I wish I'd done that for her, and that's that's a job I'd take in a minute now. Um, so yeah, I talked about some other things, and nobody was listening. They didn't care about what I had to say. It was like they were um, humoring me, and everyone in the room knew I wasn't staying. That this was a quick
Oh,
show and tell. That I mean, if you put all this together of what's going on today and what happened with my NDE and all this, and it was a show and tell, and I was going back, and then I was this free will unit that if I wanted to talk about it and if I wanted to rise to the occasion in these times, that was my it was my choice. And but anyway, they planted the seed, and at one point he just said, okay, that's enough, time to go back. And that just floored me. It was like a father, picking up a toddler off the ground saying, okay, time to go home. And I was like, what? I'm not going back there. That I was just shocked. And I'm like, there's no way. Are you kidding me?
right.
And and he goes, no, you got to go back, man. You got things to do and they're important. And he goes, so you're going back. And the three little guys, it's like they disappeared. They went somewhere else in that facility, like they were reassigned. They had another soul coming in or whatever was going on there. I don't know. But he said, time to go back. And, with his intention, the place just started to break up. It started to spin and disappear. And I could feel a drop in frequency, a drop in my vibration. And I was on my way to another channel. I was on my way to a lower frequency. I was coming back here. And it was a descending frequency feeling. I think that's what we talk about, ascension, and we see heaven as something above us. And I think it's as a musician, I think you get this. It's a frequency thing. It's these are the lighter notes, the higher notes that inspire us. And so anyway, I was going down to those diminished fifths, and everything just spun away. He just sort of, like I'd been beamed out of there, and he just sort of evaporated in front of me, and I dropped away into darkness. And I found myself in a place that was crushingly difficult. It was like suddenly there was a ton of rocks that were just dropped on top of you emotionally. And I was near my body. I was in the same vicinity as my body. I knew that. And it was lonely and it was dismal. And you absolutely did not want to be there.
Hmm.
And that's either the place directly next to where we are, and we've got names for that, or it was me reintegrating with the energy of Bill, all the history and whatever he's carrying. And whatever's, in that, his birth, the astrology chart, we come in with an energy and a DNA that kind of determines what kind of person we're bound to be. And anyway, all of that stuff was reloaded. And if you can imagine all of that not being part of you, and you're just this free spirit with no history and no judgment on anything, that is the difference. But yeah, I reintegrated with that energy, and I was back in my body. And sometime later, I started slowly waking up, and I was in intensive care, so they had these machines that were taking your blood pressure, and that I would wake up from that, my arm being squeezed, and I would look at the machines in the dark, and I noticed my vitals were climbing with each sequence, and pretty soon I could stay awake. And I kind of was half sitting up, and the nurse walked by, and she just kind of startled. She goes, "You're awake." And I said, "Yes, I am. I need to talk to you." And she goes, "Man, you have been our special project. We didn't know why you were so far gone. We didn't know if you were coming back. And I got to go tell the doctors because, you're everyone's been on alert, been up all night wondering what's going on with you." And I said, "Okay, yeah, that's cool. You can go get the doctors. But first, what am I doing back here?" I wanted answers. I was so pissed. I was so
Right.
unhappy. I was so sad and disappointed. And I told her I was home. I was absolutely home. I was out of here and I was back home with the best friends I've ever known. I was convinced that I had bought the farm. And how did I get back here? And she was one of these old nurses, and without missing a beat, she said, "Honey, you've been in escrow, but you fell out of escrow, and now you're back with us. So you're gonna have to get your head around that." And she had her hands on my shoulders and looking me right in the eye, and that was a really cool thing because um, I never forgot it. I was instantly grounded by another soul, and
Right.
a lot of I think you said something about this. A lot of NDEers will go, they'll be depressed for months and years. And, the addiction thing comes in because you want to escape and they'll lose 10 years. They'll lose 20 years
Right.
trying to sort out this incredible disappointment to be back here.
Right.
Um, so yeah, it's devastating. It's like somebody drives up with a skip loader and dumps a load of gravel on you, and you're just pinned back in this place. And I don't want to run it down too far because we got lives, and they're a gift, and that's what I came to realize really quickly within a few days. I was pretty sad, but within a few days, it was like, okay, I got to, I'm getting healthier. I can get back to work, and I was back in that role, because I love that, that public service, that helping others, that fireman. I took it very seriously, and um, then I was back in it, and I talked it up for a while, but then I learned to dummy up, and that's my story.
Wow. Wow. So when you came back, it's interesting. It's kind of a so you have this experience, you go into the higher frequency and you're welcomed in a sense.
Oh
And then you
yeah,
and then you come back down in frequency and you're welcome back.
yeah,
But in our lower frequency, right? So it's almost that's interesting. Great. And that's probably what helped you ground back in quick and say, okay, don't know what that was. I guess I have a lifetime to figure it out. But here I am back with you now. Um, wow, that's really interesting. I want to jump right in with one question to you before I forget. What so there's two pieces to this question because you mentioned the movie Communion and the little guys in Communion. So I'm going to play skeptic role as well here and there, although I'm very far from a skeptic. But would anyone say to you, "Well, you've seen these little guys because you knew the movie Communion beforehand, and it was in your brain somewhere, and that's what you formed as a dream state, or what made this not a dream?" What is that? What have you come to terms with all that? Like, is it a dream? Did it feel like a dream? Were these guys a part of a hallucination? I'm just curious what you say to people that say that, or your
yeah.
opinion.
That's a good question. Um, I never did see the movie Communion, even though I think it came out a few years before my NDE. I saw the book and it had that, typical alien on the cover. And, I kind of avoid scary movies. So I'm like, I don't need to do that. So, but I did see a picture of a communion scene a few years ago. And and it was one of those short little dumpy guys with the dark robes,
Wow.
and I'm like, what the heck is that? And then I looked closer And I'm like, well, I need to watch this movie. And then I watch the movie and I'm like, oh man, that's cool. That's that, there's a lot of clues in our movies. And it's either coming from the creative intervention um that comes in that helps mankind during these times, or it's something else. But just watching this last year with all these podcasts take off, there's a divine hand in creativity, and that that movie is telling us who we are. In fact, at the end of that movie, the wife and the Christopher Walken and his wife, they're having this discussion, and they're going back and forth, and she talks directly to the camera, and she said, "Don't look at it as a curse. Look at it that you are chosen." And
Hmm.
she's trying to talk him down, and he's already figured it out, and he's done with fear, and that's when he finds that he goes looking for what he went through before, and he walks out into a field, and it's supposed to be a spaceship or something, but if you look at it, he doesn't go into a ship, he goes into the light. He
Mm.
goes into a really bright light, and he changes dimensions, and he goes to this clinic, this facility that's looking after us in our lives.
Right.
and
So you
and
saw
then
that you saw that after though. You didn't see that before your experience.
no, I never saw that before.
Wow.
And what's really helpful, if for the skeptic, is the DMT, the spirit molecule, the book by Rick Strassman. His DMT volunteers who go, they leave their bodies and they're with these other entities and stuff, but they're with three short little hooded guys, and then a tall wispier guy that's in the background that comes forward one after another. That's in the chapter 13 and 14. It's called Beyond the Veil, or Through the Veil, and Contact Through the Veil. And that's what freaked me out, because when I read it, I'm like, these guys are going and seeing exactly what I went and saw. And that blew me away.
Right.
Uh, when you put that, a lot of kids are doing DMT now. It's a big drug thing. And when you put together that what they're seeing is what I saw, uh, and that DMT is a natural part of our pineal gland, and it splashes the brain at the time of death. This is this is a really incredible connection that
Right.
chemically we can leave this dimension and do things like NDEers do.
Yeah, I had a guest on just a few weeks ago, and he had an NDE as well. And he also, in his 20s, 30s, 40s, experimented with drugs. And so he was talking, and then got into meditation, all these different things. Really interesting, conversation. And I brought up the idea of, okay, I said, well, again, putting on my skeptic hat, I said, if a drug can take you to a similar place that you went, why can't we just attribute this scientifically to the brain? And as we kept talking about it, he started talking about frequencies. And I started, because I hadn't really heard this term frequencies. He started talking about, imagine an AM or FM radio. Right now we're on FM 92 point whatever. And, when he died, he all of a sudden jumped frequencies. He's in a completely different frequency. So then he talked about how the drug, so the way that we kind of concluded was, what the long story short is that he no longer, he realized he didn't have to take drugs to get to that place. He could do it through meditation. And so realizing that he can now jump frequencies without a drug. And so I was like, oh, so what you're saying is it's not the drug that is making us hallucinate and see things. It's that I kind of concluded this myself, and maybe I'm not a scientist, but I thought to myself, well, maybe what's happening is the drug, DMT, whatever it is turning off those receptors in our brains that are keeping us floored down to this frequency. So instead of it being that the drug is making us have this euphoric experience, oh, it's more that it's shutting down the things that are keeping us grounded. So all of a sudden we're more aware of the other frequencies. I'm starting to wonder if that's more it. Um, Only because what I was trying to, come to conclusion in my brain is okay, well, if we die, because they say, well, when we die, we get this big splurge of DMT, right? This big, right? So then I'm going, well, then maybe it is just DMT all along. Maybe just DMT is giving us this great experience. But the more I kind of talk to people, I'm thinking maybe what it is that the DMT is allowing us to switch frequencies because, there's too many experiences where people are clinically dead. They're laying there, they've got a toe tag on, they're getting put into wherever they go. And then they have this experience that's completely more alive than this. It feels more aware. I mean, I can't see it being the DMT still tracing through their body at that point. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, yeah, my thoughts are everything is vibration. And when we take on certain plants, like when we have coffee, that'll affect us for, several hours, give us a lift, and tobacco, and there's all kinds of them. And, these hallucinogenics, psychedelics, they're at the high end of the scale, and DMT is at the top end of that scale. Because it breaks down the illusion all the way. And it takes a little while for our bodies to metabolize it, but for that, you know, minutes if it's DMT or hours if it's ayahuasca, um, we're under the influence of those other channels, those other frequencies, and it's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool way to look at it.
So you are at this point, I would assume, and again, I'm sure you asked this question, but are you convinced that you experienced something beyond this realm?
Oh
Or
yeah,
was it
absolutely.
it wasn't just the brain doing something chemically to give you an experience before you died?
No, no, the brain's just something that helps us move our fingers and play a tune. It's just that it's the body, but there is consciousness. Our eternal essence is what animates this body, what energizes it and brings life to it. If you've ever watched, somebody die, it's always the same thing. Especially with children, they'll say, well, "Where did they go?" Um, because they've left, that essence of us, that conscious spirit has left.
Right.
So so yeah, it's some of my favorite researchers are like oh, what's his name? Graham Hancock, and there's a couple of others, but they all say the same thing at some point. If you read their books, they'll say, if you really want to get answers to what the universe is about, ask the near-death experiencers, the shamanic healing medicine crowd, and the deep meditators, the guys that can find those vibrations, like Robert Monroe and Edgar Casey, where you go into this trance, and your body gets incredibly heavy, this self hypnosis. Your body feels like a pile of bricks, and you're just pouring out of it, uh, going somewhere else. And yeah, that those are the three. The near death experiencers, they're absolutely experiencing those other realms. The shamanic medicine people, they're absolutely experiencing the other realms. That's a rough, you don't want to try for an NDE. And then the shamanic medicine, and I've drank ayahuasca a handful of times, and it can be a rough evening. A lot of people get emotionally scarred by it. But everybody can meditate, and you sit quietly in nature, raise your vibration with your diet and, structured water and your thoughts and how you live your life, unplug and detox. And that, you know, what we knew we were in ancient times, what they knew about us will return. We're kind of, we're kind of cut off because it's very cluttering right now.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but anybody can do it.
Yeah. So
Anybody
I
can
think
do it.
meditation obviously is that one area that, like I've said, I've continued to try to get better at that. And I use music, but it is different. I've had a few moments, and I hope to get better at calming the mind down and getting to that place. Yeah.
Can I can before we get too far, can I say something else? Because I like that you called me out and said, "How do you know it wasn't a dream?"
Sure.
And and I like that when we started, you're like, "Let's not talk. I'm going to start the session and make it all organic and real." Um, because a lot of you guys complain it's like, oh, this guy comes on and it's all scripted. Don't ask me this and take me this direction. And they're like, you're such a joy because you don't do that. And I go, why would you do that? This is all easy. It's it's all good information.
Right.
So so yeah. So I think I got off track there. But what I wanted to say was, you asked the question, how did you know it wasn't a dream?
Right.
And I told you that it's in that movie Communion, and it's also in what I experience is also in that book DMT, the Spirit Molecule, when he starts crunching all the experiences of his volunteers, and more often than not, there's three short, little, playful, joyful, fun-loving guys, and then a tall, wispier guy shows up later, and that creative thing we're talking about, that how we see it in our mainstream, in our media and stuff. And if you watch the Wizard of Oz, Dorothy has her situation where she gets caught in that vortex,
Hmm.
and she's in the house, and then part of the window breaks off and it hits her in the head, and she falls on the bed, and then she peels away from her body, and this is a near death experience. And then she lands in a place and the color
Wow.
comes on. All the colors come on, and all these beautiful giant flowers and all these things people talk about. This colorful place. And she goes outside, and there's all these little giggling short people called munchkins that are around. And they come at her in groups of three. They got the three little lollipop guys, and then the dancers and the politicians. But they come at her in groups of three. And she's with them for a while, and they're all very giggling and joyful and happy. And then along comes this higher being. It rolls in a giant orb, Glinda. And, this is Dorothy's higher self coming to say hi, and puts her on a journey, puts her on a mission uh, to, follow the yellow brick road to the Emerald City. And Uh, and she goes, and to get there, she has three companions, and one of them's a scarecrow looking for a brain, Tin Man looking for a heart, and a lion looking for courage. And this is this is my favorite part, is that if you proceed on your journey and you use your brain, your mind, to choose those higher vibrations, to live your life by the intelligence of the heart, to be kind, to be sweet, to be helpful, to be patient. And if you travel with courage, without fear, because fear will always shut down your journey, then you get to go home. And there's no place like home.
Wow.
And that is what is coming through to us. And that was my near-death experience. So I'll leave you with that, my friend.
Wow, that's amazing. No, I love that. And to sum it up that way too, right? That's great. I mean, um, wow. So that you just know, right? You just know.
I just know it's in the every time I turn on the TV or open a magazine or go to the movies, it's like, oh, there you go. See that? And the creative nature of the people creating, making these movies and stuff, whatever. It's coming through to them that it's a good idea to put, the goddess Isis in the background in this scene. And, somebody like me says, "Oh, I totally get that." Um, that's a completely another story. But I mean, there's like The Matrix, and there's 100 different movies we could talk about. Um,
So you're saying that the media, I mean, Hollywood movies and everything, they're telling us something through it. It's the same storyline. I've never had anyone break it down the way you did about Wizard of Oz, and that's going back to the 30s, right? Um,
yeah, 100 years.
so yeah, so I mean, but I've never really thought about it that way. But that's exactly the message that is pushing through. So, um,
It's
wow,
not a it's not a conspiracy. It's a divine hand.
yeah.
Uh,
I wanted, I
it's
wanted,
real.
I wanted to ask you this just because I know I don't want to take too much more time up here with you, but I do want to ask you this if you don't mind answering, and it's kind of a double question, okay? Um, because at one point in at the talk here, you mentioned about the things coming, like there's a lot of changes happening, and that we're in this new time, this changes, you know. Um, it's a double question because I usually leave each interview with the question of why are we here? That's the question I ask everyone at the end of the episodes. Um, so I want to ask you that, but within that, I'm wondering if you can speak to um, what it is that we should be preparing for. You know, I don't want to. I really don't. I don't like the idea of fear. I don't know what's coming, but there's definitely vibrationally everything is speeding up, and it's been good doing that for a while. So I don't even know what that means. I'm just saying it because I don't know what that means, but I feel it. And I've always been someone that is being a coach myself. People are always looking up to me, and I'm always feeling like I'm trying to help people in their journeys, right? Whether it's music or whatever. And I just feel like there's so much going on now with technology, with everything. I think back to even being a 90s, 80s kid, and life was so different. Walking back from school kicking rocks. That's all I was caring about. You see kids now, brains overloading, brains overloading. They go, quick, 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 quick. Everything is just completely different. So, getting back on track to my question is why are we here? And what should we be expecting if there's anything that you're feeling is coming?
Well, we're here to learn. Uh, this is an Earth school, and we come into these bodies, these gifts, for to experience it. And we do have loss in our lives, and we will lose our life at the end of it. We all know that. We're all going to die, and that's super heavy because there's no such thing as death, really. But we don't know that. So we're here for these crushing, dramatic experiences, because experience is the best teacher. And yeah, we're in the Earth School, and it's the school of hard knocks. Uh, we have wonderful lives and adventures and accomplishments, but we also have that moment when your father dies, or you lose a child, or your dog dies. Those you don't know where to go when those things happen. You are falling completely apart. So that's what we're here for. And it's hard, man. It's super hard, but at the same time, it's an illusion. Um, it's a game. And we all go back and everybody's fine. And we all get to share in the experience of this life. And it is a beautiful, wonderful gift, and we shouldn't waste a single moment of it. Um, so what's coming is, yeah, you're right. I'm glad you brought that up, that everything's speeding up. And we have names for it. We call it global warming, or there's a couple of different names, but the sun is pulsing. If you have the courage, I'm not asking anyone to do this, but just when the sun first comes up on the horizon, if you do look at the sun, it's pulsing wildly, and the outside of it is spinning these color codes, and that is source energy. That's what's keeping this place going. Passes by us every day. It's actually a portal, the dimension back to where we come from. This warmth and love and light, and supports all life here. And it's pulsing faster. And I know when I started in the 70s with the fires, you could pretty much determine where a fire was going to go, how hot it was, how much it was going to burn, based on humidity and the temperature and slope and all this stuff. That's all gone. I'm watching fires, green grass burning now. And I used to burn a couple of cords of wood a year through winter. Now I'm doubled that, because everything is burning faster. If you look at a campfire, you can see it for yourself. Start a campfire and that thing is burning super fast, flickering. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. And there are ways to look at it that everything is speeding up. The frequency is increasing. The Schumann Earth frequency used to be 7.83, and almost 8 times a second. It was cycling 8 times a second, and now it's over 12. You can actually read that, and it's gone up in the last decade or so, slowly gone up. But yeah, everything's moving faster. It's going somewhere, and we get to choose how we're going to go through this. We can freak out and have all these selfish, self-motivated thoughts, which is what most of us are going to do. Or you can help others. You can take less, live a simpler life, and be kind and be helpful. There's a movie that it was a movie called Wonder Woman, 1984 or something like that. And at the end of it it's demonstrated exactly, if there's going to be, lots of chaos, if there isn't already, tons of chaos, everything's chaotic, and she's fighting with this, at the end, she's fighting with this beast, and she is this divine being, she flies in like this goddess Isis with this gold suit. And through all of this, there are people that are, helpful. And through all this chaos, they show you people that are doing kind things and helping others and being helpful through whatever turmoil's coming. And, it's a great test for us.
And it's pretty, and I would assume too that it's probably a test that we're meant to go through to grow.
Yeah, yeah. Our higher self, we picked this, and we're the we think that we have a soul. We have a soul, and I'm gonna pull it out and go to church and show my soul and all this stuff. But we don't really have a soul. The soul has us. Um, we're kind of the car, and the driver is the soul. And
Hmm.
he drives the car around and has all these experiences and trashes it and gets another car. Um,
Right.
and we come and go.
Right.
And the best movie for that and to bring all these things you're asking together is the movie Groundhog Day, where Bill Murray is this kind of creepy media guy, and he goes to this little town to cover this story, and he's selfish and he's mean to everyone, and he can't get out of that town. He keeps waking up in that town for another day, another life. Um, he goes through thousands of days, which represent our lives. Each day he has a choice what he's going to do, and he does the sleazy thing for a good part of the movie, and it's funny, and then he gets bored with it, and he starts getting frustrated. And why am I here? I don't want to be here. And he starts killing himself a bunch of different ways.
Right.
And people that are in crisis, I look at them and I smile because it's like you're just about to pop. You're just about to ripen, and that's what. There's a scene in the movie where he's in the diner and he realizes that he is a god and that he never dies, and that's what we are. And he changes his life completely, and he spends his days helping a homeless guy and helping out these old ladies and catching a kid falling out of the tree. And he spends his day helping others and you know raising others up. um, and then he gets to leave. At the end he gets to leave the town,
Right.
and we live our lives with the intelligence of the heart and sweetness and kindness and patience and tolerance, and we develop a vibration. It's We can't fake it, but we just naturally develop a higher vibration, and we earn our wings. We get to vibrate out of this place, and we ascend.
I love how you use the movie references because it hits home, and I go, man, I got to go back and watch all these movies again because like I was not watching them in those with that lens on, you right? Like I'm just watching the movie for what it was, but
Yeah,
that's excellent.
none of us were. None of us
No,
were watching this.
no, and you're right, but it's subliminally there, right? So I'm probably gonna go back and see all these movies. Thanks so much for coming on today. Like I really I was really excited to talk to you. I didn't know which direction was gonna go, but and there's a million other directions I could go, but I could go on all day with this stuff. Um, what are you doing now? Do you have ways people can contact you, or do they just see you online? I mean, you're kind of everywhere, right?
Yeah, I'm totally overexposed.
Yeah, yeah. I think that you have a website or anything like that. That's your main place, or
No, I don't. I'm not a businessman. I don't have this isn't a business or anything. It's just talking to you guys. I'm supposed to. I'm convinced of that. And if somebody needs to talk, they can contact me at bletson56@gmail.com.
okay,
And
perfect.
I got like 10 emails this morning, and I'll
Wow.
talk to you.
Well, yeah, well, I appreciate you being on here and just like I'm like I said, like I was really excited to talk to you, and I know that you probably are busy with all that stuff. Some people, I find a lot of people when they have NDEs and stuff, they write books or things like that too because they're trying to hit different media platforms, right? They're trying to get the word out, and so I didn't know if you had anything like that or not, but it seems like for the most part, you tour around a little bit and talk at Ian. Do you still go on Ian's things or?
No, I went last year, but I didn't go this year. Um, there was a conflict. There's this group called the Conference on Procession and Ancient Knowledge, and they were down in Palm Springs. So I went to them, and
Oh,
it was awesome. I saw this woman, Vita Austin, and she was the last presenter, and she talked about this divine connection with water and how how amazing it is, how we can demonstrate that we are creators, that we are these gods having a human experience and godlike beings. How's that? Just
Right.
and yeah, so yeah, I went to that and that was really good. That she's Vita Austin, she's going to be somebody that is going to be very influential in the coming years.
I have to check her out. Sounds interesting. Um, do you get experiences now since you've been back, or is it just like you're back
Yeah.
to your regular life now? Just back to the old.
No,
Yeah.
no, what I did was, in 2013 or 14, I started going down to the jungle to Central America and ended up with shamans and drank ayahuasca and a few times. But I found that, at some of these villages and stuff, if you just follow the stillness and quietness in nature, that you can get to the same place. And that's a really profound thing that people don't understand because we are, like you said, we're all buzzing out of control. And
Yeah.
what that led to some really ridiculous circumstances. We can talk about those another time.
Yeah.
But it's this thing called Kundalini where this actually wakes up, this energy actually wakes up in your body and you reconnect with, where we come from.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll go sit in one of the chairs behind me, later today and close my eyes and it only takes a few seconds and the room is full of light beings and um, incredible bliss and colors and grids. You hear this, we're in a simulation, we're in an illusion. Absolutely, we are. Um, and all the family that we've lost and our ancestors are all around us all the time.
So I do want to say thank you first of all for you coming on here. It's meant a lot to all my subscribers watching. Thank you for following. Please like, share, subscribe. But honestly, Bill, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank
And
you, Joe.
thanks so much for
Likewise.
coming on.
So